Sickened. One word. But it's how a group of women who won national recognition for a campaign against domestic abuse are describing the actions of a would-be councillor who dressed as convicted killer Oscar Pistorious, even covering himself in fake blood and wielding a fake gun. Gregg Pears is standing for the Conservatives in the forthcoming County Council Walney South by-election. However, he's also the agent for the prospective Tory candidate for Barrow and Furness in the general election. The Conservatives say he's apologised and removed the unacceptable photos from social media. Senior Barrow Conservative councillor Dave Roberts says criticisms against Pears are harsh.
He was having this bad taste party with pals a while ago, and he didn't think anything about that at the time until he was coming up to sort of elections and everything else, and he decided he wanted to get into politics, so he got shut of that. But obviously somebody's kept in and whatever, and now obviously people are wanting to use that against him, which is a shame because he's a really nice, talented guy, and he's passionate about what he wants to do. To sort of turn around now and say, right, you're gone and whatever, I think would be slightly harsh.
So the Conservatives are standing by Gregg Pears, for now at least. Let's get more reaction on this story from BBC Radio Cumbria's Furness reporter Neil Smith. Good morning to you, Neil.
Yes, good morning, Mike. Yes, you say the problem wasn't just that Gregg Pears dressed up as Oscar Pistorious, but he did so in a running top splash with fake blood and holding up an imitation gun and pointing that to the camera. Now, the reaction to this has gone outside what it started being inside the political circle, Labour and other parties criticising Gregg Pears for his actions. It's now gone out into the community as well. I was hearing last night of some real anger amongst a group of mums who were just gathering at a swimming pool to help their kids through their swimming lessons. I'm now with Sam Walgrove, who's one of the women who's been involved with Barrow's Women Community Matters Centre, campaigning against domestic abuse on a national stage in the last year or so. So your reaction then to these images?
I think it's absolutely shameful. It shows a complete disregard for not only the victims of domestic violence, but their families as well, and the suffering that they go through.
Why do you make that connection then? Because, I mean, clearly Oscar Pistorious, he's in jail for killing his partner, and she was a woman. So there was, a tone of domestic violence about that. But does it go beyond that in terms of having an impact on your campaign and the women in the group who've been victims of domestic abuse?
It absolutely does. I mean, one of the hardest things to overcome is getting victims to talk about the abuse, overcoming the shame and the stigma and the social taboo. And for this man to publicly mock these victims, it's just going to make it even more difficult for victims to come forward. They're going to say, well, hang on, this young man here is wanting to stand and represent us in the council. Well, he's surely not going to be listening to us as victims. He's just going to, make a mockery of us once again.
We heard just there Senior Barrow Conservative Dave Roberts saying that this was a bad taste party. It was fancy dress where you were invited to turn up. It was something in poor taste. Now, clearly, in those sort of circumstances, you're not going to turn up dressed as Mary Poppins, are you?
That's absolutely true, but you also have to bear in mind, if you're standing for public office, you have to think about your constituents and the people that you are going to want to vote for you. And what image does that send out to women of South Walney? Here's a man dressed up as a convicted killer. What image does that send out?
Simon Fell, who's the prospective parliamentary candidate for the Conservative Party in the Barrow and Furness seat, he appointed Gregg Pears as his agent at the back end of last year. He told me yesterday that all young people do stupid things. He says this was a really stupid thing, and he says, he's young, he's just out of university.
I'm sorry, but not all young people are standing for election, are they, in a local area? And the work that we did last year was so pivotal in terms of getting the voices of domestic violence victims heard, that what this young man has done it's undermining the work that we're still doing now.
Is this just a political row, though? They come and go, and in a few days' time this will be forgotten?
No, I don't think so in this case, simply because...
Well, you've frozen and gone blank for a moment. I was going to ask you another question, though, Sam, which is that what impact is this going to have in the wider community, do you think?
Well, I think he's going to have no respect at all. I've had a lot of phone calls over the last 24 hours from women that I work with as colleagues and women that I support in the community, and it's the sense of outrage that's coming forward. I mean, Lou, one of my colleagues, she put it in the best possible way, and she said that this man, he doesn't deserve a seat in our local park, never mind on our local council, and I think that just sums it up.
So what should happen now then? How should this be resolved?
That's not for me to say. I mean, I'm not his boss. I'm not his mother. I can't be saying what happens to him. But from my point of view, and from the women that I speak to, there's absolutely no respect for this man whatsoever. And I think, should he carry on standing for election, this thing is just going to rumble on and on and on, because it impacts on so many different people, not just victims, but families.
Sam Walgrove, thanks very much for joining us here this morning. Mike, back to you.
BBC Radio Cumbria's furnace reporter Neil Smith in Ulverston.